Welcome to part 3 of Mediation Basics, Becoming Better Communicators. I'm Mindy Turner with the Curry County Cooperative Extension Service, your family and consumer science agent. So we've been talking about maybe helping manage conflicts within groups. It can be your family, it can be an organization or a group that you work with, maybe something you're dealing with at work, that you're trying to figure out a conflict between you and someone or between two other people where you're just kind of stuck in the middle. So we're looking at some tips and ideas, ways, and language that we can use to improve that communication and help better manage the conflict. So today we're going to talk about reframing. Last time we talked about restating and reflecting. So to go along with that, now we're going to look at reframing as another skill that we can kind of keep in our pocket for some basic mediation to help manage the conflicts that are going on around us. So framing refers to the context or definition of a problem or situation where we are. This is the box we're in with this conflict. And so a person frames his or her point of view by describing the issue, creating the context. They choose their language and they define the meaning. Their meaning may be different than mine, which is where it can be very difficult in effectively communicating our way through conflict, just like we talked about with our restating and our reflecting and being able to check in to make sure we're understanding. And so sometimes another person is put off in some way by any or all of the elements, and they can't or will not engage in a productive communication, okay, because they don't agree with the frame that you're in or the frame that this other person is in. So when we can't communicate openly and honestly because there's adversarial language or context that's just not clear, then part of the issue, we're going to have to define, if it's contentious, if there's a disagreement, what is the meaning of these things, all of that stuff. You can see we just have et cetera in there. So this is an opportunity that we can use reframing to facilitate communication. So reframing is a skill that goes by putting a statement in a new frame. We can make it more constructive, less offensive or negative, and more approachable for those in discussion. So sometimes there are certain words that I think are really negative or really bad, but someone else may just throw that word out there. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's a male-female thing. Maybe it's just the way I grew up versus where and when someone else grew up. But sometimes those words can become a barrier to how we're communicating. That frame that we build, the context that we set it up in, whether it's accurate or not, it's my perception of it. So having to reframe that to something that both sides can see and discuss is what's going to get us move past the conflict. When it begins negative or it takes on a negative tone, reframing can step in and help change the message. So reframing restates that negative statement without changing the intent and the interest of the party that made that statement. So it acknowledges the speaker and their concern, but it removes the negativity, the aggression, or that personal attack. So it's easy to get sucked in when someone's upset or they're you feel like they're jumping on you because they're being very negative about it. But if we can reframe that and take some of that negativity out, we can begin to have a conversation and take that personal attack piece away. And it's really hard when it's you. Sometimes you can see this from the outside. Again, if you're that middle person or maybe a supervisor at a situation that's having to make this work, to say, you know what, that was a personal attack. Here's what we need to reframe and do a little differently. So things we need to remember about specifically reframing, it doesn't try to resolve the problem or the conflict. It just enables the discussion. It gets it where we can continue in a more productive way by taking some responsibility for their own feelings. It helps the parties or the people start to use that reframing skill themselves. So it gives us that opportunity to separate the person from the problem. That it's that little "I hate you" moment because I didn't get my way. And really we don't. It's not really about the person. It's about that particular situation. So, the problem can be more effectively managed and then hopefully resolved if we reframe it and we can move forward in a more positive way. Most conflict is due to a bad situation. That's how we get there. It's not bad people. So sometimes we just need to join forces and restructure the circumstances that we're in so that we can focus on what the real issues are and how maybe we can behave as a team and interact. So the how and the why of it, to reframe something, we listen, we hear from a place where the parties are. Where are they not communicating? Where is that disconnect that's not coming across? They're stuck. They're stuck in their different frames and using other words that maybe they can't see as a problem or they see as a huge problem. They can't see from the other person's point of view. So they're not communicating productively. So that's why we're going to need to reframe some of this. So we have to intervene. We define a new context for both parties. And it's going to have to be agreed on. Again, this is that acknowledgement, the checking in piece. They're going to say, no, that's not how it is. Or they're going to say, yeah, that's what I meant all along. Right? So this allows them the opportunity to look at the issues from a new perspective. This can be very difficult, again, especially before we acknowledge their emotions. We talked about that in the first session. So be sure that you think about acknowledging, listening to what's really going on, acknowledging where they are, and then helping them define that new frame, that new context of where we are in this situation. And it may be using different language, having some parameters, maybe it's a boundary issue that we need to talk about, but reframing it with that paraphrase, with a summary, maybe it's with a question or some of that reflection that we talked about last time as well to get them to that place. So, for instance, it might, you might hear, well, he's a jerk and that's no friend. I don't want to be friends with them anymore. And so another way to say that might be, so you feel your relationship has changed over time, right? Because there's something in there that has caused, they were friends before and now they're not. So you got to figure out where that's coming from and reframing that in a way that it can be discussed as opposed to just that statement being thrown out there can be very beneficial to our communication. Okay, again, I'm Mindy Turner with the Curry County Cooperative Extension Service, your family and consumer science agent. This has been part 3. That means there's 1 to go. We're going to come back next time and talk a little bit about how we summarize and maybe some suggestions for how we can respond in a conflict situation to mediate that and have effective communication.